Good evening. The board now convenes this meeting of the Little Elm ISD Board of Trustees in open session on Monday, December 15th, 2014 at 6:30 p.m. in the Prestwick STEM Academy. I am Delion English, President of Little Elm ISD Board of Trustees. On the board's behalf, I'd like to welcome all who are present and to our video viewers. Let me introduce my fellow trustees and staff. Seated to my right is Mr. Cooper Begas, trustee, Mr. Christopher Williams, trustee. Unavailable right now is Ms. Leanna Harding, as vice president. To my left is seated interim superintendent Matthew Gutierrez, trustee Alex Flores, our secretary, trustee Stephanie Gregg, and trustee Melissa Meyer. For our cabinet members, we have present acting director of business services Suzette Henderson, our acting HR director Ms. Cleota Epps, and executive director Cindy Micka. For the public, this is a regular meeting which allows the board to discuss the business of the district. For the citizen input portion of our agenda, the board has made available public cards that are accepted or before the regular meeting. Cards are not accepted after the meeting has started. All cards will be collected and given to the board secretary or representative who will be present to speaking during the time. First order of business is roll call.
Mr. Christopher Williams? Here. Mr. Cooper Begas?
Here.
Mr. Delion English?
Here.
Mr. Matthew Gutierrez?
Here.
Mr. Alejandro Flores?
Present.
Ms. Stephanie Gregg? Here. And Ms. Melissa Myers? Here. And that person is Leanna Harding.
Great, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas flag?
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you all. Ms. Sonia Badillo, do we have any citizen input?
No, sir.
At this time, there is no citizen input. First order of business, I'm going to have approval of minutes, and then we're going to the audit report. Okay. All right. Approval of minutes. We have discussion and approval of minutes for regular meetings from 11/10 through 11/17, 2014, 11/18, 11/19, 11/20, and 11/21, as well as 12/1 and 12/8. Items of special meeting are special meeting minutes from 11/17 or 11/21 are in detail for the interview for superintendent. Other meeting items are for announcements as well as visitation information. Are there any questions or concerns with the minutes?
I move to move minutes on the agenda items A through H in one bundle.
Is there a second? There's a second. All those in favor? This is bundled. Do you want to make a motion for approval, or you want to set that as approval? You just said a bundle.
Approve as a bundle.
Okay, I'm sorry. So that approval, all minutes are now approved. Thank you, Cooper. As requested by the superintendent, discussion and consideration action of audit report will be moved forward. We will now take into consideration discussion and consideration of audit report. Ms. Gutierrez.
At this time, we're going to have our acting director of business services introduce our auditor for the 2013-2014 audit. Correct?
Members of the board, we have Jerry Easton here tonight to present our audit. He's from Hankins, Easton, Deaton, Pond, and C.
I'll just briefly go over the report. This is for the fiscal year ended August 31, 2014. It does cover all funds of the district. And I'll just point out.
Can we pause
some-
just a moment? Do we have copies of the,
It should be in your board book.
We also have
Electronic?
Yes.
some copies.
Board 10H, item 10H.
sorry. You still hard copy on the audits. It's good.
Okay. On page 3 is our independent auditor's report on the financial statements. And this, in our terms, is called an unmodified report, which means it's the highest opinion that we can give on financial statements. There are no modifications, no reason for modifications, so it's a very good report. On page 5 is the management's discussion and analysis, and what this does is a narrative form of presenting some of the highlights of some of the numbers in the report, which we'll go over the report in detail, but that's just to show you some of the changes and why there were changes, and some of the more important numbers of the district. That continues on. And then beginning on page 15, the statement of net position. And this includes all the funds of the district, and it also includes capital assets and long-term debt. So you can see that all the combined funds of the district there, the assets, the liabilities, and the net position. And then you have one business type activity, that's the child care center, and that's presented separately. Page 16 and 17, again, on the government-wide basis, all funds combined are the expenses by function for all the funds, including depreciation of fixed assets. Does not include principal paid on long-term debt, but does include interest paid on long-term debt. Where the revenues come from, you charge for some of your services that you provide. You have operating grants and contributions. And then on the bottom side, your main source of revenue, property taxes, and state aid. So you can see for the year that overall for the governmental activities on page 17, that there was an increase from the prior year of $3,337,605. So that's a very positive number. Beginning on page 18 are the fund financial statements. And here you can see the funds broken down. Beginning with the general fund, this does not include capital assets or long-term debt. But you see the general fund there in the first column, the assets, liabilities, and fund balances for the general fund, the debt service fund, the capital projects fund, then on the next page, other funds, and we'll get to that in a minute. Those are mainly special revenue funds, but we have detail on those that we'll get to in a minute. And then there's a reconciliation between the government-wide and the fund financial statements on page 21 that just explains the differences in the two methods of presentation. On the very next page is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for all the funds of the district. And you can see in the general revenue, your main fund there, the revenues where they came from, either local, state program revenues, or federal program revenues. And you can see the expenditures by function. So for the year, down at the bottom there, the net change in fund balances in the general fund was a positive $3,013,026. Again, a very positive number that shows the financial health of the district. And then on page 24 is again a reconciliation between the two different methods of presenting the revenues and expenditures. It reconciles between the two. Page 25 is a budget versus actual for the general fund, and it presents the original budget that the district passed beginning of the year, and then your final amended budget, because you amend your budget as you go throughout the year. And that final amended budget is compared to the actual revenues and expenditures of the district, so you can see how you did compared to how you budgeted. And you did very well. If you look at that, there are no negatives in the expenditure column there where there's a variance. So you did very well in sticking to your budget, and also in increasing your fund balance by doing that. Page 26 is a statement of net position for the business type activity. Again, that's child care services. There is internal service fund and On the next page is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position for those same funds. Page 28 is a statement of cash flow again for those same funds. So it shows where the cash came from and where it was used. Then on page 29, presents the private purpose trust funds. There's some funds that have been given to the district which are required to be kept separate, and they're only used for certain purposes, so those are kept separate. And they're called private purpose trust funds. You can see what's there. And then the agency fund is the children's or student activity funds, which again belong to the students, but the district cares for them. Page 30 is the change, the additions and deductions for those private purpose trust funds. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I'll be glad to answer. I'm going over just the highlights. Beginning on 31, the notes to the financial statements, it talks about the significant accounting policies of the district, and that goes in detail. And I won't go into detail on those. You can read those for yourself. I would like to point out on page 39, note 4, deposits and investments. The district's required to keep pledged collateral at all times. It covers the funds maintained at the bank because you exceed the FDIC limits. And we do a test to make sure you did that, and you did for all months of the year, so that was also good. Page 41 are the capital assets. As I mentioned in the government-wide financial statements, it presents those capital assets. These are the assets the district owns, and also the depreciation of those assets in there. And then beginning on page 42, there's notes about the debt of the district. There's a maintenance tax note that you took out last year. That's new. You have some capital leases that have been there at least a year. And then there's scheduled future lease payments and note payments for those. Then on page 43, the long-term debt, this combines all the debt of the district. So you can see your bonded debt, your notes, capital leases, accreted interest, and discounts and premiums and bond issuance. And on page 44 is the future bond obligations to maturity. And there's some notes about the defeased debt, and you have had some refundings, so you do have defeased debt. Page 47, there's a little detail there on the revenues from local and immediate sources, so you can see where your local revenues come from, property taxes, food sales, and so forth. That is also by fund. And then beginning on page, talked about those other funds. Beginning on page 50 is a detail of the other funds in the district. These are the special revenue funds that are required by the grant or grantor to be kept separately and accounted for separately. So each one of those funds is presented there. You can see all those, there's several of them, including the 240, which is your National Breakfast and Lunch Program, or your lunch programs. So you can see the detail of the assets and liabilities of all those funds. On page 52 is the total for all those funds, which is the number that's presented up front. Again, on page 54 is those same funds presented the revenues and expenditures by fund. Most of these grants require that you spend the money before they reimburse you, so you can see that most of them do not have fund balances at the end of the year because they're only reimbursement type programs, except for your school lunch program. Of course, you have some local funds in there. And then there's detail on those private purpose trust funds on page 57. So you can see that there are 3 separate ones that have been set up for scholarships and so forth. That gives the detail on those. And then the additions and deductions on those same funds on page 58. There are some required TEA schedules, Texas Education Agency schedules that are required to be presented in this report. One of those is the schedule of delinquent taxes receivable on page 60 and 61. And you can see what your delinquent taxes were at the beginning of the year, taxes that were levied, collections of two different funds, and then there's always some adjustments, and then the ending balance at the end of the year, taxes received. On page 62 is a statement and changes in fund balance of the child nutrition program, which is that Fund 240. Again, it's a budget comparison schedule, so you can see the original budget, the final amended budget, and the actual revenues and expenditures. Again, you did not exceed your budget and actually did better than you projected you would do in that fund. On the very next page, on page 63, the same budget versus actual for the debt service fund. And again, compared to the final amended budget, came out very close on that. Again, you had actually a positive increase in your fund balance for the debt service fund. So all the fund balances increased, which is always a good sign of good financial condition. The back section is the federal awards section. This is also required. There are two opinions back there. On the next page there. One of the opinions deals with controls and compliance that covers those grant programs. The other opinion, which again is a very good opinion, unmodified. And then the next one deals with major programs. When you have more than a $300,000 grant, you have major programs, and of course we're required to test some of those major programs. We issue our opinion on that, and again, you're in compliance with the grant. On page 71, we talk about the results of those major program audits. It tells you which programs we selected this year. And on page, there were no findings in any of those programs this year. Actually, there were no findings whatsoever. So that's a very positive thing. And the results of the prior year's findings is reported on page 72. And as you can see, all those findings have been rectified. So everything is in place and operating. There's no continuing problem in any of those programs. Page 73 is just a detail of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards that flow through the district. And you can see that the total of those is $3,755,825. Most of those are accounted for in those special revenue funds. And page 74 is just some notes about those policies, accounting policies on the federal awards. Again, overall, it's a very good report. You can see the financial condition of the district is in very good shape heading forward. And with fund balances, everything seems to be working fine. I would like to express my appreciation to Suzette and Beth for helping us during the audit. We saw the documents we need, worksheets and stuff. They do a really good job.
Thank you.
Be happy to answer any questions about that.
Does the board have any questions of our auditor?
I think just a general question. You mentioned a couple of times that we've increased fund balance. If I'm not mistaken, that comment is really around we've been able to provide additional funds to the fund balance out of our standard kind of maintenance and operations piece. It doesn't take into account the capital projects that we pulled out of that. So from a net, and this isn't about the audit, but just kind of a general, make sure I'm understanding this correctly. From a net, we didn't increase our fund balance last year because we pulled so many dollars out of capital for capital improvements. Is that correct?
Well, if you look at the fund balance for the general fund, that does include expenditures for capital assets. Now, the government-wide does not, because it reclassifies those into fixed assets, but the fund balance method, those are expenditures. So that fund balance method is on page 22. See, if you look on it's facilities acquisition and construction on 81. You spent total, the capital projects and general fund, you spent $20 million. Now, you got to take into account that down below that you also had issued bonds. So you had the money coming in and it going out. But the overall increase in the general fund, now overall, if you look at that last column, it did go down because that includes capital projects fund, which you can see that decreased. The capital projects fund is the one that handles all the construction type projects.
Correct.
For instance, this facility.
Yes.
You look at that 15 million up there in capital expenditures, capital outlay. Most of that money, well, just about all that money comes from bond proceeds, either from the prior year or current year.
So even with all the capital projects, we increased our overall fund balance by 3 million, did I hear?
Well, only the general fund, the very first column.
General fund. But I guess we've always looked at fund balance as one fund. I mean, it's, you know, it's different slices of dollars, but for us, it's always been reported as one fund. Not in, you know, we don't look at it in terms of general fund, debt service fund, capital projects fund, other funds. When we talk about fund balance and when we talk to our constituents about fund balance, we say we have $20 million in fund balance. We have X number of million dollars in fund balance. And my question is, and I can dig into this myself just to make sure I've got clarity, is that overall, our fund balance decreased last year, if I'm not mistaken.
For all your funds?
For all of our funds?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just pointing out the general fund because that's the general operations of the district. It does not include the capital
Yeah,
projects.
but when we talk to our constituents, it's generally, here's our fund balance.
Right.
Right.
Big lump sum of money, and from a big lump sum fund balance perspective, we decreased our fund balance, which we knew. We paid for this, paid for many other things, roofing and the other construction projects. So it's fine. I just didn't want to mislead anybody
Right.
in saying, oh, they grew their fund balance. They did all this great work and they grew their fund balance. It's the different pieces. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Do you have a question?
Do you need these back, the reports, or we get to keep them?
These reports are available for us to keep, is that correct? Yes. Yes, it is. Excuse me. Next item on the agenda, Superintendent Spotlight, Little Elm High School Spotlight.
This evening, we have our high school administration present. Our campus that we are highlighting this month is our high school, Little Elm High School, and we have the principal, Miss Renee Pentecost, presenting for us.
We have a little video to share with y'all. The hot chocolate, you, I think you'll get it once you see the video. It's short. day that we filmed, I was a little nervous that it wasn't all going to come together. We did that one period, one afternoon. And the credits part at the end, the groups went in and did that later. I want to thank some people that are here tonight. Tanner Davis over here is one of our students. He's the one that brought you your hot chocolate. 3 of my administrative team were able to be here tonight. You guys stand up. Clint Miller is associate principal. Ruth Molinar, another associate principal. And Terlyn Monday, one of our assistant principals. The other two had prior commitments. But now I have a student who just had a few words that she wanted to share with you, and we appreciate y'all giving us a little bit of your time tonight to highlight the great things that are going on at Little Elm High School. And this is Navika Shaw.
I just wanted to say that being a student in Little Elm High School, we get a lot of stuff from other schools saying that we're not as good schools as not as rich as them. But honestly, something I saw that I don't see in other high schools is that we have a lot of programs that prepare us for our futures, like DECA, who supports you when you get a job, and also opens you opportunities to get internships in hospitals, and our athletic training program, which opens us to the world of athletic trainer, putting us in a first situation before we decided to commit to that, and I found it very unique in our high school.
Thank you. Great job. Next up, Little Elm High School Student of the Month.
At this time, our high school administration is going to present the awards for the high school students of the month.
They weren't able to be here tonight, so we'll do December, January, and next month.
Okay,
And I
great.
forgot to mention, there's plenty of hot chocolate over here for everyone.
Great. Next up, Superintendent's Report, Performance Report.
Mrs. Mika with Curriculum and Instruction is going to briefly go over the paper reports which were just recently released by TEA.
These were released to the public on Thursday evening by TEA, and they're provided at a cover for you. We will have an inclusive State of the District annual report that we do every month, every school year in January. And there are several components of that. One is which is the taper, and then we'll also do a pink financial report, and then the violent crime report is also part of that. But if we just look at the taper for the district, there are some highlights here that I want to share with you. If you look at grades 3 and 5, in each of the tested subjects, we are above state level. In those, when you get into 6th through 8th grade, both of the subjects for 6th grade are a few points below state. 7th grade math was quite a bit below the state average. The others were above. 8th grade, we had social studies that was below. And then in the EOC subjects, we had Algebra 1 and U.S. History, which was below the state average. That U.S. History test was the first year it was offered, and so that was a new test for us. If looking at our areas of concerns on those first few pages, looking down the column for special ed, the third column from the right is an area of concern in every grade level at every subject as far as an achievement gap, as is the CLL testing results there. And so those are areas that you already see in our campus improvement plan. We will continue to highlight those areas as we're looking for areas to address at the campuses. We look at on page 4 there, we have the percent at advanced standard. And this is that level 3 that students can perform on the state assessments. We're pretty close to the state average there. The only places that we are above are, or meeting or above are reading and writing. The met or exceeded progress, which is index 2, would be we are below the state there, but if you look at the previous years, we gained. And so even though we are still a little bit below the state, we did grow in that area. Same with the percent exceeded progress. Even though we're 1 percentage below the state, we did grow there in reading, and then we grew quite a bit, 4 percentage points in mathematics. One area that we did better than the state here is if you look at the students that failed last year, we did better than the state in both reading and math, as far as the students that failed, the percentage of students that now passed. On the bottom of page 4 there. And then on page 5, our tax exit level cumulative pass rate is even with the state. If you move on to page 11, looking at our attendance rate, we're a little bit above the state, pretty much equal to. We are below the state, which is good in the dropout rate. They're at 2.2 and we're at 1.5, but we do have an area of concern all the way over on the right column there of our ELLs. Our dropout rate is at 6.1%. So you will see specific action plans in our district plan and campus plan to address that. And then if we look at page 13.
Real quick, can we just back up? How many students is that roughly? Do we know?
It's less than 30. How many ELL students in high school? 70?
There's 70 ELLs in class.
70. 70, Mr. Begas. 9th through 12th grade.
So it's 4, 5 kids.
And when I do the annual performance report, I will have that there for you, so you'll know exactly how many we're talking about there. If you look at page 13, and this is our AP, SAT, ACT results. The first row shows how many we test, and we actually test more than the state average, percentage-wise. The second area there is the criterion of passing, so that's typically a 3 or above. We are below the state. But we did improve by about 6 percentage points from the previous year. The SAT results, we're below the state average still, but we did improve. The SAT average score, we're still below the state. We came up a little bit. The SAT, we're still below the state, but we're increasing and we're almost there. And then if you look at our graduates enrolled in Texas Institutes of Higher Education, we're a little bit below the state. And this one here is really difficult because it only takes kids that are enrolled in Texas public schools. And so if we have a student that goes to a private school in Texas or a private school out of state or to a public school out of state, they are not included in this count. The next page, page 14, is our demographics from last year. If you scooch over to page 15, at the bottom there, that is our class size averages by grade and by subject. So grades K through 6, we go with class sizes, and the first column is the district and the second column is the state. And then at the secondary level, again, the first column is the district by course subject, and then the second is the state average. So we are above average at both the elementary and the secondary level.
Are they still pretty close to what we're running now? I know the status.
I have the
is
class
old.
report for you.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll be sharing that with you tonight. So then on page 16, the highlights there, if we look down, what I saw was the teachers by years of experience. We are above the state average in the 6 to 10 and the 11 to 20 And so that's good that we're getting teachers with more experience. And then on page 17, our average years of experience is just right under the state, and our average years of experience of teachers that are in the district is right under what the state average is. And if you look at our instructional staff percent, we're right there with the state at 64.8. And then on page 18, the one thing that I wanted to point out to you is that we are below the state average for the percent of students that are in special ed. And you'll remember a few years ago we were quite a bit above the state average. And so that has been something that our special ed department has been working on, is to decrease that number.
What is the cause? What is the cause of that variance?
Well, one of the things that we're doing is that we are utilizing the 504 program more effectively. Instead of putting students all the way into special ed, we're intervening with the section 504 first, which is what that is for. That's just a brief overview. Any questions?
I have one. Initially, it's a request for more information. Can you give us information next time on, when you were talking about the teachers by years of experience, can we get a breakdown, and it can be for the next meeting, it's fine, for our facilities, the breakdown by years of experience for the K through 5 versus the 6 through 12? So is that too much? Thank you. Thank you.
That's possible.
U.S. history, you mentioned it was the first time you took that exam. What was the reason for that?
It's a test that was not offered prior because we took it the previous year, but only 2 of our students took it because it's an EOC. So to be enrolled in that course is the only way you can take it. Prior to that, anyone that was in that course was a tax graduate. So the prior year, we actually had 2 students that took U.S. history, and they both passed. So we had a 100% passing rate. But that's because they were accelerated in social studies. So last year was the year that we had our first juniors that were going to be STAR graduates. And so that was the year that we had EOC for U.S. history.
So we better prepare the teaching material?
Yes, and for the first time we'll be able to benchmark them on that exam as well. Because no one knew what the test was going to look like. And now when we do our benchmarks, we'll be able to benchmark on the released U.S. history exam.
I know we have a new, that's that now. If memory serves me correctly, we hired maybe a year ago a new director for math.
A new coordinator for social studies.
I thought we hired one for math.
We did. We've had one for math
maybe
for
over a year.
We've had a brand new one, Dr. Mallory. We've had the curriculum.
Yes.
I'm sorry. We've had the coordinator position for math for a long time, but we hired a new coordinator for mathematics. Dr. Mallory's been here 3 years now. This is her 3rd year.
Time passes by.
Correct.
Sorry.
This is her 3rd year. We hired a new ELAR last year.
I don't know what that means.
English language arts and reading.
Okay.
And she was English language arts reading and social studies. And then this summer, last summer, you approved the new position for social studies, so we could break that.
Okay.
So we now have a new coordinator solely for social studies.
So my concern, and forgive me, my background is math, so I see math deficiencies throughout all the different age groups. Right. So do we have an action plan to bring them up? Are we looking at who we hire, or what are we doing for math? Because once they fall back,
right. And we do well through 5th grade, and then we start going down in 6th, 7th, and then we pick back up in 8th. We're going to, one of the issues this year even, and it's across the state, is that we have new TEKS. And so the new TEKS we began to implement them last year, and then they're tested this year. And so we've put in a new math program that is teaching the students more the why behind math instead of strictly just calculations. And so we began that this year. And so we did that in the lower grades, and we'll start pushing that up. So that was part of our new textbook adoption. And then we have rewritten our curriculum. This summer, we revised all of our mathematics curriculum as well to make sure that everything was at the rigor of the verb in the TEKS. And so to make sure that our we are with fidelity teaching at that high level of rigor that is also being tested on the STAR test. The STAR test was a different animal. And I will, if you would like, I can bring you an example over the past 5 tests that the state has offered, what the test questions have looked like in math, so you can get an idea why it's not just us, but across the board, the state is struggling in math.
Yeah, I noticed also, I mean, several districts I've looked at have had some concerns about the math rigor. I mean, if you can provide that information, just send the email to us, so you don't have to spend too much time on that.
One of the things that we did this year was we double blocked math at the 6th grade level. So that is something that we're looking at continuing doing next year, to try and catch that first group that drops, because we're strong in math, they're difficult.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I did have a question. Early on, Ms. McKee, you mentioned a concern around special ed and ELL. Was that in comparison to the state or district?
Both. If you look at that column there, you know, just starting in 3rd grade reading, you know, the state's at 76, the district's at 82, and special ed passing rate is at 59. And all the way down that column, I've highlighted there's only 2 areas where we're below the state, but I'm still not too worried because we're so much higher than the others, 5th grade reading and 5th grade math. So across the board, our students are struggling in special ed. We'll have to see how it comes this year, because they've actually taken away one of the tests that we had for our special ed students. The STAR modified assessment no longer exists. And so our students will be taking the regular STAR just with accommodations. And so
So that was brand new through the state's adoption of the test, right? So it's going to push students who originally were doing the modified STAR over to the regular STAR.
correct. And that happens this year.
Okay.
And so we've been preparing for that as much as we can with our inclusion model in special ed, and working with the students at the regular level with support underneath, with the paraprofessional support inside the regular classroom, instead of pulling them out into a resource room. We've been, as much as we can, including them into the regular classroom and pushing in special ed support this year. And so that's one of the responses we had to this when we got it.
Okay. So, and then just to follow up to that is, as I look across, right, and I look at the different groups, there seems to be some other groups that are struggling, our Hispanic and our African American students as well. Are we going to think about that in the plan for that? Because, I mean, if we just brought them within just a few points of our other students, that will raise us up across the board, right?
Right. And we look at that in any of our campus improvement plans. We look at what's required by the state, and then we look at what's required by the federal government for AYP. And so when I bring you the big report in January, we'll actually go through and look at all the campus improvement plans, and we will pull out the objectives for any of these targets that are below the what the state and the federal government says they need to be, so that you can make sure that we are addressing these areas. So we'll bring you the specific campus objectives.
Okay.
Okay? It'll be a long report, and we'll do it in a, it has to be a public hearing, so it'll take place prior to the board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Would it be possible to get information from other schools that have, I mean, this is public information, right? So we could identify other schools, school districts that have exceeded state and their region scores, and maybe do mentoring, or maybe go and do a site visit and see what makes them successful, so we could kind of tag along and learn from them. Could we do something like that?
Yes. And one of the trainings that we gave to our principals early this fall was to teach them how to look at their comparison schools for their index, for their school accountability report. because each of our schools has a different comparison group. And so we taught the districts, I mean, the principals how to look at that and then to take the top quartile to find the resources for the campuses that are most like them, that have been successful in that specific area. But yes, we can do that.
And not to take your thunder, I think Ms. Gutierrez and actually Ms. Mika, you guys actually have started some of that cross-pollination between different school districts, if I understand it right. You guys have visited schools already and looking at actual improvement opportunities for us.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we get a report of what, besides doing the visit, what y'all are gonna, what your plans are with that?
Can I interject? We also have, and Mrs. Glover, please feel free to step in, because she works very closely with our principals in their campus improvement plans. And not only do we have a district improvement plan, but all of our campuses have their own individual improvement plans to where they address the specific areas that are in need of improvement. Not only that, but they highlight the strengths as well. And so on all of their websites for every campus, you can actually see how they're performing and what initiatives they are putting into practice on their campuses to address those areas. Ms. Carr?
Well, some of the distinctions that some of the schools made actually are in the achieving through the gaps in our subpopulations. So a lot of the distinctions that Oak Point, Brent, and Zellers were in increasing the subpopulations and achieving the gap in African American and Hispanic populations. So we're constantly looking as principals at the subpopulations and making sure that we're addressing their needs, and also looking per campus if it's a certain subpopulation, what can we do to train the teachers to address that subpopulation better. So there's a lot of discussion on our campuses how to hit our subpopulations. That's special ed, Hispanic, African American, and those things. Special ed. What else? But that's a constant discussion among the principals.
Okay.
And please don't misunderstand. I think collaboration is incredibly important, and I'm glad that that discussion is happening right now. When we were having our interview section, one of the comments that was made was that it was geared around AP teaching and students, and one of the comments that was made was that they went and they recruited, or they paid in overtime the highest and most successful AP teachers to come and mentor their current AP teachers to help their own school get better. And then they were so impressed at that school that they ended up being able to hire them as teachers later on. And so sometimes it's good to look outside, because everybody kind of, even in the outside of education, you do it in, in the corporate world as well. You have to look outside the box. And I know you guys coordinate with other districts. It's just kind of, what else can we do?
Yeah. I think too, on any reports that we come back with or any reporting needs we have, really should be focused around how do we affect policy to help you guys out. I don't want to see just reports just for the sake of reports, right? Because that causes time for you guys to do it. But if there are reports in which there are policy consideration or constraints that we can do to help you guys out, as far as focusing our resources to help you in areas, those are things that are always important from that standpoint of view. And that way we can all get that information and then start making some positive decisions on what needs to happen.
And I can also speak. There was a lot of questions down here about our ELLs, and it's important to all of our principals, but two specifically that you'll see a little bit of a larger achievement gap is at our middle school and at our high school. And so in working with Ms. Pentecost and Mr. Meadow and their team, something that was very important to them and myself and Ms. Mecca as well is that we just don't talk about improving, we do really specific things to improve. And so, for example, at the high school, some things that we're doing with our ELLs, Mr. Miller and I and our ELL teacher, we meet every 2 weeks and we review student grades. We look at students to see who is behind their original cohort, who needs some additional intervention, things of that nature. We are ordering a program that is not, when I say that I want it to be it's for a very specific reason, for very specific students, for very specific teams. And so that's also an exciting thing for us. We're also going to be looking at doing some mentoring where we have our teachers working with specific students individually. They are responsible for that student. How are you doing? Are you doing well? Why are you not coming to school? How can I assist you?
let's talk about your writing, things like that. So that's a really great thing. At the middle school, we're doing a lot of the same things. We have done some donuts for dictionary skills occasionally. That's a really tough thing for a lot of kids is dictionary skills. And so Mr. Meadow has been very supportive in some creative ways that we can get our students there, learning those different dictionary skills. Also, I have been joining the campuses, both secondary, both the middle and the high school, every few weeks. I'm about to begin in the high school, but at the middle school, they invite me to come every 2 weeks, and I do 2 strategies that are easy, that can be implemented with their English language learners and their entire class. And so that's an exciting thing for them. And the teachers have been putting it into practice, and the principals have been celebrating them trying those new endeavors. So those are some very specific things that we are doing to work with that ELL population.
Okay, thank you. I want to move it along. We've got some other things we got going on here. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. There's a request to move discussion and consideration action on audit report, which we just received. Move it up for approval of vote. I'd like to bring that before the board now. Discussion and consideration action of audit report. I'd like to have a motion for approval of the report.
Make a motion to approve audit report as submitted.
There's a motion. There's a second.
Second.
There's a second. All those in favor of improvement of the audit report? All those opposed? Motion carries. Fall semester update, right?
Speak to that, or would you like me to just point out what's available?
Yeah, fall semester update is fine. Next item, fall semester report. You want to update? You want to go ahead and point out what's there?
Sure. I just wanted to take a moment to point out to our administration, our campus principals who are present, our audience, and to our online viewers. Within Board Book, last week we did release a summary of changes that have occurred since July 1st. We have undergone a significant transition, and so there is available to the public and to our employees a list of things that we have accomplished and achieved as a team since July 1st up until today, and that is available on Board Book, which is on the Board of Trustees webpage under Board Book.
Thank you. Okay, great. At this time, the board will recess into closed session in the conference room as permitted by the Texas Open Meeting Act, subchapter 551.074 and 551.072, 551.071 at 7:26. All right, 8:26, we open the open session of Little Elm Board of Trustees ISD. Ms. Flores, you did receive 8:20 was the closing for the executive session. Business items, item A, are you going to pull discussions? Item A, we're pulling that guy?
Yes, we are.
All right, item A, we will be pulling item A. Discussion and action, item B, discussion and consideration action on personnel memorandum.
I'm sorry, sir, are we voting on consent agenda?
I'm sorry, my bad, we should have been before. I stand corrected, we're moving back to consent agenda. We have any consent agenda items. We have approval for financial reports, approval of gifts and donations, and approval for vendors. Is there a motion to approve consent agenda? Your consent agenda packages and information should have been available for you on Board Book if you need a review.
Yeah, I'd like to pull, I think this is in the, nope, it's elsewhere, it's item G. All good?
You good? You looking at item G?
No, I just was hoping was something wasn't buried somewhere else, it's fine.
Okay, you okay with that? All right. If there are no questions, then to make a motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion. Can I have a second? There's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of consent agenda, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda carries. Item B, discussion consideration of personnel memorandum. Ms. Gutierrez.
We are kind of hard to hear over on that side.
Yes, it is.
Okay, bringing forward for personnel. You can see them all listed out. We have 5 new professionals coming in at the high school, one at Prestwick and one at a few, and you can see that they've posted the information with years of experience in their positions. And then it's listed as well the resignations that will be accepted for both the professional and the paraprofessional. Are there specific questions as to any of the personnel I can answer?
What do you do with the Beardens?
I know, it's very sad. They are retiring and going off to the coast to enjoy life.
Fine. They'll be missed. I've known the Beardens for years. I know many people in the district have known the Beardens. Great people, be greatly missed.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So, any other questions I can answer?
Hire some teachers. Okay.
And just so you know, too, we did have a teacher resigning this time, and then we had a couple that were moving out of state, spouses, other jobs, things like that. So, in fact, the majority on here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them leaving the state, or at least, you know, the metro area because of spouses, and then 1 retirement.
Okay. Entertain a motion for approval of the personnel memorandum.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, there's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approval of personnel memorandum, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries for approval of personnel memorandum. Business item 10C, discussion consideration of SHAC wellness policy.
At this time, President English, I am asking that we table the SHAC wellness policy because after consulting with TASB, I do believe that we do not need to get that approved as it continues to align with our FAC policy, both legal and local.
Outstanding. So move that item will be tabled. Next item, discussion consideration CH local. Mr. Jerry, you want to have that one? Sika.
Bringing forward to CH local to bring it in line with what other districts in the area are doing, and also in line with CH local to raise the limit from 25 to 50,000.
The only light item under that was just to raise the.
Yes. Oh, and the other piece there is that we're adding is the annually the district shall bring to the board expenses that routinely occur for approval. When we started auditing our that CH local after last board meeting, we saw that had it was never specified how often that had to come to you for the reoccurring expenses. And so actually the last time that had come before the board was 2011. And so just to cover us on CH local and to make sure that we are doing what you want, we talked with TASB and we decided to put in that wording so that it's annually that we will bring you those reoccurring expenses instead of just whenever.
Okay.
So that just tightens it up for our benefit.
Okay.
Where is that change in CH local? Because I don't, oh, yeah, there it is, sorry.
You good?
I'm good.
Got it.
Red, annually, right there.
You're right there.
Imagine that.
The big mark. There you go. All right. Any questions? No?
I like where it is. So we had discussion, or is that part of the discussion?
Part of this, when I call for it, I'll call for discussion.
In terms of questions and discussion.
Yeah. You?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Entertain a motion for approval of CH local. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussions.
I like where it is. I don't think it comes up all that often. I think most people on the board know that I'm fairly conservative when it comes to the financial accountability of the district. While I realize that other districts may have it at 50 and CH Legal may have it at 50, I'm fine being conservative and leaving it at 25. That's my perspective. More visibility.
Yeah. Any further discussion? I think the only thing I saw was for the cost control. One of the things that happened, and you could probably answer this question, is at the level it was causing now requires board interaction. Were there fees associated when we have late items which are paid? Yeah.
And with us not paying the bills in a timely manner, then we drop into the paying the, we've always paid our bills within a month, within that first 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're stepping back and not doing that, then move forward with having to move into that 31 to 60-day time frame, which we don't really want to do.
Right.
So,
Don't we require POs for purchases? So shouldn't we know what that allocation, what that purchase price should be before we can submit an official request for it or enter into a contract with it? So that being late really doesn't apply because we would know what that purchase order is in advance and how much that purchase order would be for, and you should get approval before that purchase order is submitted.
on the purchase orders, but this was for the routine, the bills that were coming in, that we hadn't had that we hadn't done the routine on since.
So that's a different different item on the agenda.
Yes.
This is the 25,000 limit.
The only area that this really affects us is in the IMA funds with the textbook adoptions, when we're in that tight turnaround during the summer months, when we're trying to order our textbooks, and we're not meeting as often, and we're having to turn around and get that ordered.
We can submit it. We can do an exclusion for that in the summer, much like we do hiring.
Any further discussions? No further discussions? All those in favor of CH Local moving it forward for the limit, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. So a 3-3 split? Is that 3-3 split? So the motion does not move forward on 3-3 split, I believe. CH Local is denied. Discussions, consideration, FOC Local.
We currently do not have an FOC local policy. And so this is one that we looked around, we got this from another school district, looking at how they do this. And so this comes into play where we need to make sure that we have it spelled out clearly about our DAP appeal process. And so this, we've had some questions about this, and so this would spell it out clearly for our families as to what our appeal process is for the DAP.
All right. Any questions on FOC Local? No questions. Entertain a motion for approval of FOC Local.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on FOC local?
I have a quick question. Am I reading it correctly that this is about when they pull the student out of the AAP?
This is for when we put a student in DAP.
But the parent may pull students from to the DAP? Okay.
Yes, two.
5 days, okay.
So then we have the appeal that goes to the principal, and then it would go to the designee, which would be, right now, it is the HR department.
Thanks.
So they'll, we currently do not have an FOC local, we only have an FOC legal. And so this just spells out our appeal process that has been procedure. But this makes it board policy, instead of just in the handbook procedure.
So you probably have the code of conduct.
We have a code of conduct, correct.
But this will kind of centralize it.
Correct. We had some parents ask for our board policy on this, and all we have was our code of conduct.
And the policy says the board's designee shall conduct a hearing?
Yes.
So one person off the board can conduct a hearing by themselves?
No, your designee, and right now your designee is Ms. Epps.
I don't, when I'm reading it, that's not clear to me.
Okay.
Am I the only, I mean, it reads, within 5 school days of the receipt of the DAP appeal form, the board's designee shall conduct a hearing to review the removal of the decision.
Yes, that's correct.
And it's current, what are you currently doing?
Currently, when we get the appeal, Ms. Epps hears it and makes the decision.
So is the intent that it's always a designee, and the designee is always a board, a staff member, not somebody?
Correct.
My request would be that it's clarifying somewhere in the policy, because when I read it, I don't see that in the policy. Am I being, I mean, maybe I'm being too picky, I just don't see it.
I understand what you're saying.
I'd like
To me,
to clarify.
board designee would be somebody that we select on the
board.
Okay, all through, and I know we're just looking at this one policy, but in every policy that you see, that's in EIC or FOC, it always says the board's designee, and that is a staff member, an administrative staff member. For example, you designate who's going to be your records management person, that's the board's designee. And sometimes it spells it out and it says the superintendent or board's designee. And so every time you see that board's designee, it's someone on staff.
So it's written this way so that we don't have to
Legal.
change it every time.
Correct.
It's human resources one year,
Right.
it's another
Correct.
individual another
Right.
year. It's just.
Correct, it's your designee.
It's just your
It's
designee.
So what happens if somebody on the board decides, well, I'm the designee?
But it,
No,
I don't think you can do that.
I'm asking, what happens? Because the way it's written, it doesn't specify.
The boards in general, unless you're.
I'm just protecting the district.
Correct,
I mean, let's say 10 years from now, this is the policy, and we have a rogue board member. I mean, we read cases about this kind of stuff.
this is, from what I understand, is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the legal term of a staff member that does this job throughout all of our board policies. So anytime you read board policy, when you read board's designee, it is a staff member.
Well, and remember, it's if you have the rogue board member, number one, I don't think it's within the board's authority to do these kinds of hearings, but number two, I mean, you'd have the majority saying, no, you're not our designee, it's the board's designee, so it would have to be with the majority of the board appoints as a designee, so you have the one rogue.
So we're
board
protected?
member. I believe, yes, and I can tell you this is the legal ways for every local policy, and I think if you look at, it will say designee, and it refers to the district employee.
And one of the things that we're doing, because we're doing the policy audit with TASB right now, and one of the things we're moving away from is specific titles.
Right.
And we're going just with the straight board's designee.
And I didn't.
Instead of a specific title, because as jobs change or people move, like this, what happened this year, that position changed with job duty. And so instead of just saying like the executive director of or the assistant superintendent of, we're going with a more general term.
I understand, and I wasn't alluding that it
Right,
should
I
be a
understand.
title. I didn't know if it had a designated staff member or whatever. I just didn't, I mean, as a lawyer, if you think we're safe, then that's what we
I
paid
think
for.
you are, because, you have the road board member, but the rest of the board says no, and I honestly think, just, generally speaking, that's how the entire policy reads, that entire section of the policy reads.
Okay.
It stays consistent with the way that policy is written.
I just want to uphold the integrity of the
No.
hearing.
No, I think that's a great point. Does your code of conduct, does that set out your appeals process as well, or is it just, okay, so is that more thorough as far as the process, does that stipulate?
It still says the days and then how many days we have to come forward,
And
but
if those boards designate.
Okay.
That's standard to me, but it's a good discussion. It's up to y'all.
All right. Good, Stephanie. You have any other questions, Steph?
No.
You good?
If y'all are okay with it, I'm fine.
I'm fine with it. Any other discussions on there? No? No discussions? Move all those in favor of FOC local, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? FOC local carries. Discuss and consider action of class size waivers.
okay, in your Friday update and in your board packet was the most recent class enrollment sizes. Just to recap briefly, in case you don't have them in front of you, Friday, November 21st, we were at 6,938 for the district. Today, on Friday, December 1st, we were at 6,933. And that's what we expect this time of year, is students enrolling and withdrawing as they're getting ready to move or what have you. This is a high move time frame for us, so we would expect that we would pick back up after the holiday season. Particularly to the class size waiver. Sorry, let me get all my pages here, sorry. We'll be having a total of 11 waivers total. This is not in addition to what we applied for last time in October. This is total. So, for example, at Chavez, we will have 6, but I had previously requested 8, so we're actually have a decrease of 2 there. Okay. At Lakeview, I had previously requested 3, and this time on the class size waiver, I'll put in a 2, and so we've actually decreased to 1 there. And at Oak Point, we'll be asking for 3. 2 of those at the 4th grade are not necessarily because as a grade level we're over, but because of how they've arranged those classes. Because if you'll see on the class size report that we're under 22, but because of how the class size, the ins and outs and moves, when a student moves in and moves out, we don't necessarily take a kid out of a teacher's class and put them in another one. Does that make sense? So we'll be asking for 3 total new waivers there.
Okay. Questions concerning class size waivers? If no questions, I entertain a motion to discuss and consider class size waivers.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussions? No further discussions. All those in favor of approving class size waivers, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Motion carries. Discussion and consider action on vendor and recurring expenditures over $25,000.
Ms. Henderson?
Tonight we're bringing forth the recurring repetitive vendors that we pay that are over $25,000. In researching our CH local, we realized that the last time that had been brought before the board was in September of 2011. So we did go back and make sure that we had covered every reoccurring monthly or quarterly payment that we would make over $25,000 and compile a list of those particular vendors.
Okay.
Concerned about some of the vendors on the list.
Yes, sir.
ACIS, is that a travel, is that a,
I'm sorry.
the first one on the list, ACIS?
It's Air Conditioning Innovation Solutions. It's tied to the HVAC.
Okay.
That you've recently approved an additional $100,000 to be spent on our HVAC renovations.
Okay. Then you even go into CBS Mechanical, CBS Roofing, Pogue Construction.
Those are all tied to our constructions that we have.
But those should not be repetitive $25,000. To me, repetitive is the electric bill, the water bill, the food bill, the copy bill. Those are one-time, probably not one-time payments, but they're one-time specifically approved and funded projects. They're not repetitive. And there's a whole list of them here that I would have concerns about that don't fall under competitive, or sorry, repetitive.
Well, I mean, as our construction projects continue, we do have our repetitive payments coming in. We were just making sure that we brought to the board what is actually what our transactions are each month. That we are paying construction bills that do exceed the $25,000 limit, that we don't have a PO on, that they're bringing in check payments requesting those funds.
I would expect I would expect anything related to a construction project, and maybe we just need to figure out the wording on this. Because we've approved that budget and because we've approved that funding, we've approved the $25,000 for that already. We've approved the $1.3 million for that. We've approved the X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars for that project. So that if we approved, again, this is my perspective, and the board can weigh in, is if we've gone ahead and approved $250,000 for HVAC work, and we get that $250,000 worth of work billed in $50,000 at a time, it wouldn't be my expectation that we would have to approve each $50,000. You have that $250,000 that we've approved. You should feel free to go pay for that, because that entire project's been approved.
I certainly understand what you're saying.
So it sounds like...
It would be the same with our utilities. It's a budgeted item for our utilities. The board has approved.
But we don't make a decision. We don't make a decision to pay utilities every year. We don't have a choice to say, do you guys want to go ahead and fund utilities this year? It's a little different. It's utilities to me, water to me is part of standard day-to-day operational expenses. It's those day-to-day operational expenses that should be included in here, not those one-time project capital funded type expenses.
So I guess,
and that's my, and and I understand your feedback and understand your perspective, and this is really just, for the board if they agree with me or not, and if they want to ask questions. So it's not,
well,
I may be the only one that's thinking this way.
Sure, and I respect that, yes, sir. One of the things that we weren't real sure as to what direction to go with is, because it had not been done for several years, we wanted to be sure that we were taking care of everything. So we stepped back and ran reports, anything over $25,000 for the last 2 years, and we brought that to you in this list to be sure that we were trying to comply with CH Local in the manner that you would like for us to.
Yeah, my personal perspective is I would like to table this for now. Again, this is for the board to figure, to say yes or no to. Table this now, go back and give us some specifics on who these vendors are, and then maybe we can vote again. We can bring this up at another time and specifically say what vendors. But I think my personal perspective is the capital projects and those relationships that we have with CBS Mechanical and Pogue Construction and so forth, those have been funded. Those should be pulled out. These are the day-to-day operational, you've got Oak Farm. Yeah, we're going to buy milk every year.
Okay, and that was, I wanted to bring that to your attention too, because that had not been done, and we are holding payments because we did abide by your request and stopped making payments until we brought this to you in this recommendation. So therefore, we do have some bills that do need our immediate attention.
So it sounds like there needs to be an update to CH Local in some regards of capital projects, like you were saying, capital projects payment that are funded that do not require $25,000 or more. Those capital projects can be excluded based on CH Local, what we have now, it sounds like CH Local is very strict, and so the $25,000 applies broadly to everything.
Yes.
Is that what you guys are currently incurring now?
Yes.
Yeah, because the way I see it is
Okay.
CH Local currently limits expenditures prior to board approval. Expenditure is, we've approved to expend money on HVAC.
So it sounds like there needs to be some clarification in CH Local is what it sounds like.
Yes, sir, that would help. Yes, sir.
I'm kind of
But we
agreeing.
would like to, I mean, I understand what you were saying, not wanting to make a motion on this, but we do have some items on this list that do need to be addressed.
And I think part of it, it's not your fault or not anyone's fault. I think it's just, you probably weren't part of the discussion at the beginning. And in the past, previous history was if it was part of a construction project, we approved the construction project and the budget for that project, and so it was assumed, which, you know, I guess was probably part of the miscommunication, that once it's approved for the line item for the project, then it was approved by the board, and so it didn't have to come back for every single invoice. Am I saying that correctly, Cooper?
That's how I'm
For
understanding
construction
it, yeah.
projects.
Right.
Because otherwise we'd be getting 1 million invoices because construction's so expensive.
Yeah.
So that's how those invoices were handled.
So lawyer.
Well, you know, of course, my recommendation is whatever bills that we can all agree tonight that are recurring be handled, because the government code does, I mean, mandate interest on these that are over 30 days late. So we don't want to get into that because there's a mandated rate.
Mhm.
Not sure what it is off the top of my head. But I mean, yes, I think, you know, the milk, the things we can agree to, we need to go ahead and get those paid. That's my perspective on it.
So we'll split up
Other things we can agree
sound
to.
like we split up the vendor list to those things which are recurring that need to happen. And then we need
She's
to,
saying, you
yeah.
know, bills that are overdue or soon to be overdue that we can agree, you know.
Was this a problem before? Has this been an ongoing problem for the last year?
This was the first time it was brought to my attention.
So looking at the history, has it?
All I could find was back that dated September the 11th.
So
Prior to
this is the
that, I
first
don't even
month?
see anything.
Yeah. So the issue was in our last board meeting, there was a concern about things being paid over $25,000 that had been paid. That was a concern that was brought prior to the board. You guys went back and looked at all items that were $25,000 and above the limit, that had met that limit, and said, hey, we got to pull things which we are paying consistently, which are $25,000 above the limit.
Yes, sir.
And so I guess there was confusion about the CH Local that was associated with that. So I think there needs to be some clarity, it sounds like, for CH Local on capital projects which are, you know, need to be paid on a monthly basis versus expenditures which you have monthly expenditures that we currently are in place. So this was, I think it was a concern that was brought up in that last board meeting that you guys were trying to address, is what it sounds like.
So let's do this. Maybe we can, and we're here, so let's see if we can go, I think we can go through this really quick.
Yes, sir.
ACIS, you said, is air conditioning. I think you guys have free reign to pay that because it's probably covered under a, and board, please jump in if I say something wrong here, because I'm gonna try to go through this real quick. ACIS, I think you can pay, that should be covered under an approval for a larger project. CBS Mechanical, CBS Roofing should be able to be paid because it would have been covered under previously approved expenditures. Copier monthly, let's keep that here. And let's,
So I hear your point, but here's my concern is, we're letting you know which ones need to be paid, then you guys have to go back and try to figure out which ones have to be paid on an individual basis.
I think we're doing that right now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying.
That's what I plan on doing right now.
Copier is fine.
Yes, I think copier falls under the recurring.
That's what I was.
Yeah, copier falls under recurring.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
COSER falls under recurring.
Yes, sir.
DCAD,
Denton County Appraisal District.
that's under recurring.
Okay.
DCSEC,
Special Ed Co-op.
that's under recurring. And guys, jump in if I,
Can we say something? Aren't we really, what we're looking for is anything that doesn't have a regular PO?
A regular recurring.
That's what we would
Really
want.
want, right, exactly.
Is that-
I think it's better. I think it's much better.
But
This
That's what we're
is a check
looking for.
payments.
Yeah.
but I'm also trying to get through tonight to get payments out tomorrow.
No,
No,
Yes.
Well,
I
it
guess the
sounds
other
like there's
question-
payments that are in danger of being late.
Yes, which
Yeah.
is what Mr. Vegas just said, is we need to
But I guess
process
the
these
other
payments
question
tomorrow.
is,
So items,
This list,
Yeah,
though,
is
Yeah.
there any?
is there, I mean, are these all due? Is
that?
No, not all of these are due. No.
Okay.
No, no, no.
There's one
Okay.
that's-
Yes.
Maybe you're right, the easier course is to find the ones that don't, that don't apply.
Right.
We don't want to take.
Yeah.
Well, and going forward, those would be the ones that don't have a PO that need to come to the
That's
board.
right.
Right.
And anything beyond that, if it's a regular,
Right.
that's not.
In other words, we don't want to,
Specify.
I don't want to sit there and micromanage every single thing you guys are paying. You guys know what needs to be paid and when it needs to be paid. The question really is how strictly are you guys following the policies that we currently put in place? Because there was concern that the policies were put in place, you guys were paying above that limit, which caused and triggered a question about that item. So is the question really, and you can tell me from a lawyer standpoint, that we change CH Local that says, hey, any of those recurring payments which are normal billable items, i.e., whatever the case is, they have authorization to pay over, or is it we just simply go, phew, forget that, we change it to $50,000 and then those items go above, or is it that we come up with an educated list of recurring payments that are lights, air conditioning, et cetera, and then those items which are capital project expenditures, which are, we approved $250,000, you don't have to come back to us and do anything. So the question is that something that's a policy issue we should be looking at, or is that?
Well, I think you're in danger if you try to really define
Yep.
narrowly.
Okay.
This is an exhaustive list of what you can do.
Exactly.
Because it's like things are always going to come up that are agreed to be recurring. I think the policy is actually written pretty well, and as far as the limits, that's up to y'all. I think you already made that decision tonight. But I mean, I guess your question for me is, is it better to make it more narrow and specific, or is it better to keep it broad? Is
Right.
that your question?
Exactly.
I think the better course of action is to keep it broad, but I agree that, some things maybe not be falling under what we define as a recurring payment.
But
And so I think
they've gone through the analysis to bring us this list. They've already done the analysis of what they think should be in that recurring. So we have the list to evaluate. We have the list to review. We just got through 4 or 5, 8 of them.
No, and I think we need to pinpoint what is the problem and, why is it the problem? That's what you were doing, I think.
Yeah.
What are these expenses that are not reoccurring? And let's define, so that they know, so that they have a clear understanding of what's not recurring.
Okay.
And why.
Yeah, because my idea tonight is to make this motion to say that we, the board, approve these recurring expenditures over $25,000 for CoServe, and we list them out right here, and we do it right now.
And how many?
This is the
what
list that
total
they
number?
came to us
What's the total
with, so
number?
we're not going to expand it. We're not going to make it any more narrow.
Okay.
We can
We're
frame,
going
we
to have
can,
to come back to you to get approval
For
on any
any new items,
expenditures.
exactly.
What are your thoughts on that? I don't want to.
but there shouldn't be any more new recurring. These are standard operational daily.
We took last year's over 25,000 and what we had paid to date
Okay.
as our research
Okay.
to know what was eligible for this list.
Okay. So it sounds like if we do this on a periodic basis, of you guys bring us a list of items which are 25,000, as Cooper was saying, we define what those lists are and then we approve those.
But the policy hasn't been
Changed and put in
to
place.
state how
often we do
would like
that.
for us to do that.
That's
Right.
right, the policy
Right.
wasn't changed.
Okay.
I
So,
think that part of it is a given. I think that if you reject the rest of it in the limit, that's fine, but they need to have some kind of
Guidance on that.
annual review of what these expenditures
Sure.
are going to be, because they're going to change from 2011 to 2000.
okay, so at that rate, I would ask Mr. Gutierrez to get with the policy committee and review that policy with the lawyer. In this case, like Ms. Cooper is saying, let's define what that list of items we have, which is 25,000. Let's go ahead and approve that and get that knocked out. Cooper, what do you have?
We need to find that list first, because I'm not approving this list.
No, you said the individual items that we need to approve based on their payments are due.
I'm not even saying payments due. I'm saying we just take a stab and we get this thing done.
Okay.
So we
Go
got,
for it.
okay, so we got down to DC, SEC, I'm assuming that's a Denton County.
Special ed, co-op.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I think that-
I'm sorry. Yes, it's Denton County Special Ed Co-op.
Okay, so I think that's a standard, everyday,
Yes.
recurring. Denton County Regional Day School is part of doing day-to-day business.
Yes.
Regional 11 is day-to-day business. Focus is day-to-day business. Gold Star is the buses.
Yes, sir.
No, it isn't.
Health special risk?
That is our annual. It was a blanket insurance coverage. Like I said, we went back and took a look at what we paid over,
Okay.
$25,000. So that is the blanket insurance policy that the district approves each year.
Okay.
And we bring that to you through
Right, Commissioner.
either a contract renewal or we go out for bid for those.
Okay, so I think that gets stricken from the list. People, yes?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Are we late on that one?
Which one?
No, it's already been paid because you did act on that
Health special
back
risk.
in the summer.
Okay.
Mifflin, textbooks, education materials?
Yes, those are all instructional related. Mifflin.
Are those recurring or those-
JAMF software.
Those aren't month-to-month recurring, correct? Those are more...
Well, they may not necessarily be month to month, they might be quarterly as well. I listed that on there. It's month to month or quarterly that would be over the $25,000 threshold.
Do we owe anything on that right now?
No, sir.
Okay. I'd like to pull that one on for further discussion.
Let me double check for just a second. I know for sure the JAMF software is not on hold.
And is that the insurance for the laptops?
That is the max, yes. Well, no, it's not the insurance. The insurance for the laptops is the Worth Avenue Group.
So what is
the
the JAMF software?
The November, you actually did a PO, one PO for it, had to do with the MacBooks.
Okay, so that's not going to be recurring. And is somebody keeping track of this with me so we have this right when we're all said and done?
I'm not sure about the Mifflin. I need to double check.
And that's why I'd like to just pull that off for now and we can bring that back at a later.
I'm not sure if we have a check payment that's on hold, is why I'm saying that. Juros is under the contract construction.
So that gets pulled off.
Our water bill needs to stay on.
Water would stay. That's
Will
recurring.
come off.
PO will come
because of
off.
that.
Gas will stay.
That stays.
Oak Farm will stay.
The one-source flooring is tied to the JOC and it can be as they need it.
That should come off.
Pearson Education is going to be tied to instructional needs. She says there's no openings, it's tied to textbooks, correct?
I would prefer to pull that one off and have a future discussion on that one as well.
Okay.
Technical lab, I think we're down to technical laboratory.
I do not know that one off the top of my head.
So let's...
Is there a bill payment?
We have a pending payment.
Payment on
on
that?
that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know. The risk management, those are typically an annual payment.
That's fine. We do
And
those.
it could, FSC and Stantec's going to be tied to your construction.
Okay, so
You need to do the Cisco.
those come off. Cisco, yes.
SunTrust is tied to our lease payment, most lease payments. That's typically a
That's fine.
payment.
Yep,
That is not a PO.
that's fine.
Okay. Southside Bank is tied to a capital lease. We have a pending payment coming due January the 10th.
But it's a lease, so it's something
Yes,
that
sir.
I'm fine with that.
We pay that once a year, and it's due January 10th each year. So that can stay
Once a
on.
year?
It's a lease payment, that particular one is.
On what? Do we know?
We're thinking it's the energy management. All we have, we've not researched it enough to know, it says equipment on
Okay,
there.
that one, if you
We
don't
have-
know, that one comes off.
Well, it has,
As a payment.
As a payment due. Yeah.
We won't meet again before it's due.
Yeah.
If you want to include it, we'll include it, and then we'll pull it off later. But,
Yeah,
you know,
it's included.
a 1 year, when they don't know what it's for, when they can't tell me
well, we're
specifically
thinking
what it's
it's
for.
the final
January
payment of
7th.
the energy management program that you,
It's a 15-year capital lease, and paying after 15 years.
Okay.
For the energy
I
management.
think it's energy management equipment.
You think it's energy management. I apologize, but you think it's energy management equipment. We don't know. Nobody's, if it needs to be paid, let's leave it on and we'll come back and revisit that one.
The deal group was tied to some renovations at Zellers.
So that would come off.
And then the Worth Avenue group insurance is tied to the technology insurance that the parents actually pay, and we collect and send off, and that can be reoccurring throughout the year.
So that should stay.
That should stay, yeah.
I'd pull that one off because we're not always going to have laptops. We're not always going to have parents. We may change vendors. We can keep it if you guys want. I'm one person trying to get through this.
I would keep that one. Why everybody else feel about that one? Seems like a recurring payment on that. Go throughout the year.
Okay. Disagree, but I won't argue. So let's go. Okay, so
we can approve based on that listing that you have.
did you capture everything?
I'm going to read these back to you.
Okay. And read them back to everybody, just so we're all...
I have the coffee monthly payment, CoServe, Denton County Appraisal District, Denton County Special Ed Co-op, Denton Regional Day School, Education Service Center Regional 11, Focus, Gold Star Transit. We were talking about Hopton Mifflin.
When we say talking, so I'm
because
saying...
I cannot remember. I believe that there is a pending payment on that.
Yeah.
I do not have that information right
Okay,
now.
if we think there's a pending payment, let's include it to get it paid.
Then we have Little Elm Water, Northwest Propane Gas, Oak Farm, Cisco, SunTrust, Southside Bank, and then Worth Avenue Group.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the reoccurring expenses over $25,000 as submitted.
Specified.
Or as specified. As specified.
Okay. Right. A second? The motion is forward. There's a second of the motion. Discussion, consideration of vendor and reoccurring expenditures as specified by our listing. All those in favor of that? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And we can revisit this again. We'll get paid what needs to get paid. This is a good first start at it. We'll go back and revisit it if we need to and pick out some others or add some others.
So just so I'm clear, you want me to work with them on revisiting CHC?
Yeah.
I want to talk about.
Right. That's going to come up with his discussion, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, so the purpose of this is to approve vendors that are spending, that we are paying over $25,000, but they're technically vendors that are not a line item budget, correct? I mean, our water, our food, our CoServe, those are all line budget lines, right? So this should be things that are outside of the recurring budget.
No, it is.
No, it isn't recurring budget. It is inside a recurring budget.
Right, but we don't have to approve the CoServe and everything every year.
Every month, no.
We don't now.
We don't now,
Well,
yeah.
that's why I'm confused on what has been done in the past versus.
So-
It falls under recurring because what you're saying, it's just things that are.
So what we're doing is adding it in so that it's done annually.
Yeah, we're not, we're just saying every year we'll reevaluate what's going to be recurring for that year.
Right.
I think that's a great idea because then you're not
Stuck in, right.
3
So-
years later, we're not sure what we're doing.
Yeah,
Right,
at the
so what
beginning-
is-
At the beginning of the budget year.
Right.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
we are up and down swing. So where this came from, Melissa, basically is there was concern that there were things being paid that were above the $25,000 limit, but that were not approved by the board. The issue was those things were reoccurring items. They weren't items that weren't falling out. They were just reoccurring items that were happening in payments. So what they went back and did is looked at all the vendors that they are currently paying that are above $25,000 and said, who are we paying above $25,000? What are the reoccurring payments that we currently have? And they brought that to us as a board to look at those items. So the question now is there is probably something we can do in CS Local so we don't have to go through this. Again, they'll bring the vendor list and say, hey,
What do we have in our authorization?
what do we have exactly?
So we know.
So we know what it is.
Yeah, without having to come back and get.
Right.
Individual.
Right. So we don't get the question again. Somebody says, well, it's paid about $25,000. Well, yeah, because it's a recurring item. Okay,
And
thank
just
you.
last point, Ms. Henderson, if you could just get that final list to Mr. Badillo so it can go in the minutes.
Yes,
It'd be
Yeah.
correctly reflected. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Cooper. That's good. That's a good idea. Discussing consideration of land swap.
I make a motion to approve the, we don't really need a presentation on this.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve the land swap agreement as presented by the town of Little Elm.
There is
And
a
discussed in executive session.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion. There's a second. All those in favor of approval for land swap between the Little ISD and the City of Little Elm as discussed in executive session for the amendment? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The land swap bill is done. Thank goodness. All right, last few items. Next item on the, I'm going to move up board, I'm sorry, no, I'll keep that one. Request agenda items, board operating procedures discussion. All right, so a while back we talked about board operating procedures. Mrs. Gregg, I think you received some.
I received everything, so as of about 2 hours prior to the meeting, I have everybody's information. Thank you for sending it to me, so I will compile it and put it in a form and review it and get it back to you guys.
Outstanding. We will have board operating procedures. For those who are unaware, those operating procedures put in place, basically board functionality. Some of the things we were looking at into that operating procedures were saying certain things like board development, which is training, communication, grievances, all processes that relate to the board and its function operations. In those, we broke those up. The board got together and decided, hey, we need to put these operating procedures forward. We sent all that information over to Ms. Gregg, who has the darndest task of putting it all together. Once that is put together, we will adopt the board operating procedures, and those procedures will be our procedures moving forward, basically to govern ourselves is what it's designed to do, so that we are doing the right things and focusing on the right things. So thank you very much for everyone who, all the board members who spent time. Once that goes over, Matthew, you'll need to take a look at that, and you and the staff look at that, and then of course the lawyers need to look at it, and then we'll go from there. All right. The only other thing we have is I have to move up the board comments. One of the requirements that we have is reading of the board training record. Everybody did well this year on the training record. So the training record stands as it is right now. Ms. Biggest, you have 21.5 hours. I have 36.75 hours. Ms. Flores, you have 25.25 hours. Ms. Gregg, you have 6 hours. Mrs. Harding had 17.25 hours. Mrs. Myers has 27 hours. And Mr. Williams, you have 9 hours. However, I think some of your 9 hours, you have more hours than this. I think you were missing probably a debit about 12 hours or so.
Okay.
So you are closer to the 20s.
And for the record, I should have 4, but I did the national convention, and TASB apparently doesn't recognize its own convention for classes.
So the courses there.
Whatever.
This states you're still legal. It is on continuing education requirement by state law that if you're a continuing board member, you have to have at least a minimum of 5 hours. If you're a new board member, you have to minimum of 10 hours. That is by state law, and everybody has passed with flying colors, it looks like, so we're good there. Only other thing, we have one other thing which we are in your board package agendas, effective board practices. One of the things we have to do as a year end as a board is board evaluations. The board evaluations are set in by policy. Every year we do those board evaluations and we use a template. This year we pulled the only template that was currently available to us, which is effective board practices and inventory for school board. On number 5, inventory of school boards. We can use that as our template. We will come back in January and do a board evaluation for the year of 2014. And that will be held in executive session, and discussions will be held there. I did want to provide the board with the effective board practices so that you guys have it. Look over it, and then when we come back in January, we can discuss the evaluations by the board.
I will look. We have the ones from CRSS. That's
Okay.
what we had used last year.
Okay.
So if I can find it,
Sure.
I will forward it to the board as an option.
That sounds great.
We don't have to use it as defined, but
Okay.
that's what we used last year.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. One other thing, we will send this out to the board. Mr. Gutierrez has done a great job in his time as tenure as interim superintendent. One of the things he did do, and I requested we discuss with the board, is a couple of things. One, what are policies and procedures that we can change or modify, or anything that we need to do to help us move forward as a district, and any of those procedures in place. Ms. Gutierrez and staff came up with an areas of opportunity. Ms. Gutierrez, I asked that you send this to the board members. These are areas in which we can basically improve in from the district standpoint of view and going forward, and will be in review by the board for further discussion. Most of these will associate with instructional things as well as policy things, and we'll have Ms. Gutierrez send it out to the board moving forward. The next one is, Ms. Gutierrez mentioned it earlier, fall semester update. This fall semester update, which is also part of your package, is what's taken place and improvements that have happened in the school system since July. That's right, July this year. They have to do with technology, communication, culture, instruction, budget, and just a number of items that have taken place within the school this year to help improve the school district. So that's also available for the board as we move forward. At this time, I have no other board comments. Are there any future agenda items that the board would like to see?
I believe we've had discussion about a January 5th special meeting to approve the contract.
Contract, that's right. Discussion right now, yes.
We have a board have not discussed new superintendent priorities. I find it a little unsettling that we would have a new superintendent come in and not have some clear direction when they hit the ground day one. So at that board meeting, I would like to see an agenda item workshop for setting superintendent priorities. First, it doesn't have to be this specific, but the first 60 days, first 90 days, first 120 days, we need to give, he works for us, will work for us. It's our job and our responsibility to give him direction, to give him, what is important to us. We know that there's a tremendous amount of things that we need to look at and things that we need to work on, and we're doing a disservice to both us and him, assuming it'll be him, if we don't have something concrete to provide him day one.
So I think you bring up a really good point. One of the things we didn't have, and we asked for is, and I think this is where Ms. Gregg comes into place, is there's two things that are required at the end of the year. Like you were saying, one is the annual board evaluation, and the next year is year-end priorities and goals set for the following year that comes into place. I think that all goes into play where we talk about that as well as strategic plan. There needs to be a strategic plan put in place for the district itself moving forward for the next whatever year plot that is. So putting a workshop together for that time period to talk about those things, discuss those things as we move forward is, I think, a really important item. I think this area's opportunity is one of the things that I asked Mr. Gutierrez and the staff to look at so we can use this as a bench plate to begin to discuss what are the things we need to be looking at. So I would ask that the board members take a look at the areas of opportunity so that we can start to begin to hone down on what those things are that are important priorities. And I agree with you, a workshop would be good in the January timeframe.
I'm not saying January I'm saying January 5th, because we can't wait. We don't want him here for 2 or 3 weeks as we flounder about what we want those priorities to be. So I'll let you guys decide if you want that on the agenda for the 5th or not.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that. You want to take that down, please?
Yes, sir.
We're already discussing this contract on the 5th. There's going to be some stuff the board's going to need to give me direction on. So
right.
we're discussing the contract on the 5th. That's already given me.
Yes, yes. And as I understand it, he has his counsel now. You guys are beginning the discussion.
We're in, we've been in contact.
Right. So just give us a quick update on that.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
not.
sorry,
on the
not on agenda. My bad. You're right, my bad. We sent them.
Is the 5th the next meeting?
5th is next meeting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what
you're right.
that was- Yes.
All right. Any other future agenda items? All right. Board comments. Any board comments? No? If there's nothing else, no board comments, make a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Second? All those in favor? Board meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.